Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. On behalf of Islamabad Policy Research Institute, I extend a very warm welcome to Her Excellency, Deputy Chief of Mission, Madam Tang from People's Republic of China. We are indeed grateful that you have taken time out of your busy schedule to come and grace this occasion. I also welcome Ambassador Inam and the fellow authors who have contributed to the book chapter. The book, 70 Years of Pak-China Relations, Perspectives on Geopolitical, Economic and Cultural Cooperation. It's a book which has come about as a collaborative effort of Pakistani and Chinese authors. And Pakistan and China, as we know, have entered into an abiding relationship that spans 7 decades of political, economic and cultural cooperation. And there are several dimensions of that relationship, each one of those a subject unto itself that merits a separate book. Though a lot is being written about Pak-China relationship, there is a dearth of scholarly works that pass muster on the bar of international scholarly standards. This book is one such effort that would help deepen our understanding, besides acting as a useful primer for the students, policymakers, and the academic community. Right, the Pakistan-China cooperation, which is viewed with a lot of interest by a lot of people around the world, is something that has evoked and elicited the interest of academia the world over at the regional level. And I'm sure today's effort is going to find resonance amongst the policymakers and the academics alike. We are glad that we have the authors amongst us who contributed to the book and from whom we could listen firsthand about their perspectives on this very special relationship between Pakistan and China. I now invite the moderator of today's event, Dr. Fazal, to come up to the rostrum and commence the proceedings.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. On behalf of Pakistan Council on China, I welcome all the participants who are present here or have joined us online for this event. Pakistan Council on China was established in 2012 as a broad-based forum for the promotion of Pakistan-China relations and creating better understanding of China in Pakistan and of Pakistan in China, so that our coming generations could understand the dynamics and the rationale behind this unique relationship, which stood every test of time and has been constantly evolving and getting stronger and deeper with every passing day. The special focus of PCC has been on the youth segment of our societies, which has to carry forward and build upon the contributions their elders have made to keep nurturing this friendship. PCC's other initiatives include engaging official and high-level policy influencing circles in both the countries for safeguarding the interest of both Pakistan and China in a regional and global environment which is moving towards instability, tension, and chaos. Today's event is organized in collaboration with Pakistan Studies Center at Fudan University and Islamabad Policy Research Institute, IPRI. The publication of this book is part of the commemorative activities for celebrating 70th anniversary of establishment of Pakistan-China diplomatic relations. The book, 70 Years of Pakistan-China Relations, Perspectives on Geopolitical, Economic and Cultural Cooperation, is the outcome of an edited book project jointly organized by Pakistan Council on China and the Pakistan Studies Center at Fudan University. This book is a product of joint efforts by the leading Pakistani and Chinese scholars, experts, and veteran diplomats who have not only served in China as ambassadors, but also held the highest ranks in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Pakistan. The book is designed in a way to give an overview of almost all the aspects of the past 70 years of Pakistan-China relations and linking it to the present and looking into the future too, for identifying areas of cooperation to create an environment conducive to shaping a common future for the two countries as well as for the entire humanity. I will not comment on the content of the book, as it is the prerogative of our well-qualified commentators to do. However, I would like to mention the titles of the chapters which are covered in this book. A foreword has been written by His Excellency Nong Rong, Chinese ambassador, who was supposed to be here, but due to his some sudden engagement, he could not come, and we welcome Madame Tang in his place. The first chapter, which is an introduction, has been written by the co-editor from the Chinese side, Professor Du Yukong. Third chapter is evolution and future trajectory of Pakistan-China relations. Fourth chapter deals with China-Pakistan relations in a changing international environment. Fifth chapter deals with China-Pakistan relations, regional politics and security paradigm. Next chapter deals with trends in South Asian security, role of China and Pakistan. China's role in peace, stability, and economic prosperity of the FPAC is the next chapter. Then the 8th chapter deals with China-Pakistan counter-terrorism cooperation. 9th chapter deals with China-Pakistan trade and investment relations. 10th chapter deals with China-Pakistan agricultural cooperation, a review. 11th chapter deals with Belt and Road Initiative and CPEC, building a community of shared future between Pakistan and China. 12th chapter deals with China-Pakistan economic corridor, achievements and prospects. 13th chapter deals with the importance of people-to-people linkages and cultural exchanges in China-Pakistan relations. So primarily the book is divided into three major sections. First section deals with the security environment, security cooperation related issues. The middle part of it deals with the economic affairs, economic linkages, and the third part deals with people-to-people connectivity and the importance of cultural relations. So this is the overall layout of the book. Without further ado, I would like to invite Ambassador Inamul Haq for his comments. He is a former Foreign Minister of Pakistan. He has served as the Foreign Secretary, Ambassador to China and Turkey, and Permanent Representative to United Nations. He is also President of the Pakistan Council on China. Over to you, sir.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Distinguished participants, I would like to begin by welcoming all of you to the launching of the book titled 70 Years of Pakistan-China Relations, Perspectives on Geopolitical, Economic and Cultural Cooperation. As Dr. Fazlur Rahman has already stated, this book is a collaborative effort to commemorate and celebrate the 70th year of the establishment of diplomatic relations between Pakistan and the People's Republic of China. It has been co-edited by Dr. Fazlur Rahman, Executive Director of the Pakistan Council on China, and Professor Du Yukong, Director of Pakistan Studies Center of Fudan University of China. I would like to thank both of them for their efforts. I would also like to thank the Deputy Head of Mission of the Embassy of the Republic of China, of the People's Republic of China to Pakistan, for having joined us in the launch
ceremony of this book. My thanks are also due to Brigadier Janjua, acting president of IPRI, for providing us the premises and the facilities to hold this book launch. A number of writers of chapters in this book will be discussing the multifaceted relationship between Pakistan and China. I will therefore resist that temptation to touch upon specific issues covered in the book. I will merely note that the contributors have written about the strategic, international, and regional situation, as well as the political, counterterrorism, economic, trade, agriculture, and people-to-people relations between the People's Republic of China and Pakistan. A chapter has also been devoted to the Belt and Road Initiative with its flagship project of Pakistan-China Economic Corridor. Distinguished friends, in today's turbulent world, Pakistan and China relations stand as a beacon of stability and mutual solidarity and support for the rest of the world. Pakistan was among the first countries to recognize the People's Republic of China and also among the first to open a diplomatic mission in that country. With the passage of time, the relations between our two countries have grown stronger in the political, military, diplomatic, economic, commercial, cultural, and other fields, and the relationship has risen to the level of a comprehensive strategic partnership. Pakistan and China's cordial and fraternal relations were established long before China emerged as a major economic and military power on the scene in the world. These relations are based in mutual trust and confidence that has existed between the leadership of both countries for generations and have withstood the vicissitudes of time and international developments. The solid foundation of our time-tested and all-weather friendship was laid by the first generation of the Chinese leadership and has continued to grow and prosper with each new generation. This friendship is based on mutual respect, candid and comprehensive discussion of all bilateral and international issues, convergence of views, and close cooperation on all issues of mutual interest. The two countries have consistently stood by each other. Pakistan and China have borne with courage and fortitude the difficult times that they have confronted, and together celebrated the good that has come their way. This multifaceted cooperation between them is an example for the world to emulate. A distinguishing feature of this relationship has been that it's not aimed against any third country. The two countries have consistently worked to promote regional and international peace, progress, and prosperity. This relationship is designed to promote cooperation in the neighborhood as well as with global partners. The two countries base their policies on time-honored principles of respect for sovereignty, territorial integrity, non-interference, and peaceful coexistence. And they expect other countries to follow the same principles in their relationship with us. The Belt and Road Initiative launched by China is a $1 trillion long-term transcontinental infrastructure development project, and it is designed to enhance connectivity and trade and improve international economic integration. The China-Pakistan Economic Corridor is a flagship project of the BRI. The United States and our neighbor India, for example, have opposed the BRI and CPEC and have exerted pressure to wean countries away from the BRI as well as the CPEC. They have also been pressuring Pakistan to give up on CPEC. However, those opposing CPEC are trying to place obstacles in the way of its timely and rapid implementation should know that all efforts and ploys by forces inimical to the success of CPEC will be defeated by the people and the governments of both Pakistan and China. Let me turn briefly to China's international relationship, particularly with the United States, because it has relevance for Pakistan as well. Many people had expected that with the coming into power of President Biden, the erratic policies followed by the previous president, Mr. Donald Trump, would be changed and that a better international situation and a better relationship between China and the United States will begin to take shape. Unfortunately, that has not happened. Since his assumption of the presidency earlier this year, Joe Biden has not only carried forward, but intensified the Trump-era policy of conducting a new Cold War with China. The idea of United States being superseded as the paramount global power or the sole superpower by China is unacceptable to it. And it is in order to maintain its present status that Joe Biden has used the slogan of America is back at the Munich Security Summit and has been talking about restoring US global leadership ever since. His proposal for the revival of the Alliance of Democracies is a move in the same direction. Earlier this morning, President Biden arrived in Europe, in the United Kingdom, to attend the G7 summit in Cornwall. He will then proceed to Brussels to attend the NATO summit before his scheduled meeting with Vladimir Putin on 16th of June in Geneva. According to a recent article in The Guardian, penned by Raphael Behr, Joe Biden's mission at the G7 summit and presumably at NATO summit will be to recruit allies for the Cold War against China. China is regarded as a strategic rival by the United States and therefore is under attack on all fronts. Apart from the Indo-Pacific pivot and the activation of the Quad comprising US, Japan, Australia, and India, China has been subjected to a trade war, imposition of high tariffs, relocation of Western industries away from China, imposition of sanctions against and banning of Chinese corporations and technology firms, creating new supply chains which exclude China, a tech war, cyber conflict, outer space rivalry, competition over scarce mineral resources, energy, and confrontations in South and East China Seas through provocative naval military maneuvers close to Chinese shores. And there were news today that the United Kingdom is again sending an aircraft carrier into South China Sea to boost the United States' efforts in the South China Sea to confront China in its territorial waters. There is also criticism of China on the so-called issue of human rights violations and mistreatment of minorities, as well as on Hong Kong, Tibet, Xinjiang, and Taiwan. There is competition for influence in Africa and even in South America, and pressure is being exerted on vulnerable countries to back away from Chinese initiative of Belt and Road as well as cooperation with China in other areas. The United States also uses its influence over the international media to portray a negative image of China as a predator nation interested in exploiting the natural and mineral resources of developing countries in Africa, Asia, and other places. In American terminology, such a policy is called a full court press. That is, that China will be pressed on all sides so that it pulls back and does not become a competitor to the United States in the near future. Distinguished participants have taken much of your time. Allow me to conclude by expressing once again my deep appreciation to Dr. Fazlur Rahman and Professor Duju Kong and their parent organizations for bringing out this volume on the relations between Pakistan and China. Our two countries have in the past and will in the future stand shoulder to shoulder to confront all challenges together. Pak-China friendship Zindabad. Thank you.
Next, I will invite Madame Pang Chuanchu, Deputy Chief of Mission at the Chinese Embassy. She understands South Asia very well. This is Madame's second term of service in Pakistan, and she has also served in Afghanistan and Sri Lanka and understands this region very well. Over to you, Madame.
His Excellency Ambassador Inamul Haq, former Foreign Minister and President of China Council, Pakistan Council on China, and ladies and gentlemen, a very good afternoon. I'm honored to be invited to the book launch ceremony today here. First of all, I would like to convey the ambassador's best wishes for this precious event, because he would love to come, but because of some sudden engagement, so he has to lose this opportunity for this precious event. So, and first of all, I would like to congratulate the publication of this book, 70 Years of Pakistan-China Relations, Perspectives on Geopolitical, Economic, and Cultural Cooperation. And would like to express my thanks to the experts and scholars from Pakistan and China in writing the papers. And I firmly believe that this book will play an important role in enhancing the understanding of our two peoples. My thanks also goes to the Pakistan Council on China and the Pakistan Study Center and Fudan University for taking initiative to bring together the leading experts of the two countries to work on the book project. China and Pakistan, connected by mountains and rivers, share the same strong will for peace and development. As early as 2,000 years ago, the Asian Silk Road built a bridge of friendship between the two civilizations. Since the establishment of diplomatic relations between China and Pakistan in 1951, the two countries have gone through 70 years of thick and thin. And the China-Pakistan friendship is as firm as rock and has been everlasting. In 2015, President Xi Jinping paid a state visit to Pakistan and upgraded the China-Pakistan relations to an all-weather strategic cooperative partnership with Pakistan leaders thus opened a new chapter in the cooperation between China and Pakistan. And the CPEC has expanded our scope of cooperation to a more comprehensive level. Since the outbreak of COVID-19, China and Pakistan have been helping each other, showing once again the unique friendship and solidarity. Today, in a world with drastic changes unseen in a century, China-Pakistan relationship is increasingly influenced by regional and international factors and is facing more opportunities and challenges. Both China and Pakistan are committed to strengthening the country and enriching the people. And more than ever, both sides need to end each other more, stand by each other, and work closely with each other. Recently, President Xi Jinping highlighted the need to develop a voice in international discourse that matches China's comprehensive national strengths and international status. And as the closest friend, we need Pakistan to make larger contribution in helping China to strengthen its capacity for international communication. At the same time, Pakistan's focus is shifting from geopolitics to geoeconomics, which also need to build its international image in the new strategic environment. Thereafter, as the all-weather strategic cooperative partner, China and Pakistan should work together to construct our own discourse and narrative. I sincerely call for the scholars from China and Pakistan to better tell our two countries' stories and make our voice heard. Looking forward to the future, China and Pakistan should give full play of the traditional friendship, jointly meet challenges, seek common development, and jointly build a closer community of shared future between China and Pakistan, which will benefit the people from two countries, promote regional stability and prosperity, and make China-Pakistan relationship a model for building a community of shared future for the mankind. Thank you very much.
Our next commentator is Professor Du Yukong. He is Director, Pakistan Studies Center, Fudan University, and also co-editor of the book. Professor Du is a very old and dear friend. He specializes in all dimensions of South Asian security matters and political affairs. Besides his very distinguished academic career at Fudan University, he has also served in diplomatic positions in Islamabad and New Delhi. So I hand over the floor to Professor Du Yukong.
Thank you very much, Professor Fazal Rahman. China and Pakistan are linked by mountains and rivers, and their traditional friendship can be traced back 2,000 years ago. Shortly after the PRC foundation, Pakistan was among the first countries to recognize it and established diplomatic relations with China in May of 1951. Since then, thanks to the joint efforts by both governments and people,s the two countries have become the unique all-weather and all-dimensional strategic cooperative partners in the contemporary international community. The so-called all-weather refers to that China and Pakistan have always understood, sympathized, trusted, helped, and supported each other on issues concerning their respective core interests, no matter how changing and complicated the international situations are, withstanding the test of time and history. With regard to the all-dimensional, it means close and comprehensive cooperation exists not only between the governments, political parties, and all sectors of the community, but also in the political, economic, diplomatic, military, technological, and cultural fields as well. Therefore, China and Pakistan relations are their cooperations have become the fine model of friendly coexistence between countries with different social system and cultural background. And now, China-Pakistan friendship is deeply rooted in the hearts of the two peoples, integrated one into our blood, and turned into a lofty and firm, brief, slow, real action. This year, 2021, marks the 70th anniversary of establishment of diplomatic relations between China and Pakistan. Their strategic cooperative partnership is at a new start point of carrying forward past achievements and striving for new progress in the future, thus become an important milestone in their history. On this 70th anniversary, entrusted by the Chinese embassy in Pakistan, the Pakistan Council on China and the Pakistan Study Center of Fudan University jointly edited this book, 70 Years of Pakistan-China Relations, Perspectives on Geopolitical, Economic, and Cultural Cooperation. Dr. Fazl Rahman, Executive Director of PCC and the Pakistan Study Center of Fudan University, understood the planning of this book, soliciting contributions from both countries, and publishing its Pakistani and Chinese version. The chapters, mainly from Pakistani and Chinese former senior diplomats and senior scholars, were carefully selected, organized, and compiled. His Excellency Ambassador Nong Rong, Chinese ambassador to Pakistan, wrote the foreword of this book. Ambassador Anna Hark, former Foreign Minister and President of Pakistan Council on China, delivered a keynote speech for this book launching. And the Islamabad Policy Research Institute contributed a lot to this event. Here, I wish to take this opportunity to thank you all. Thank you very much.
Commentator is Muhammad Amir Rana. He is well-known scholar on security issues, especially on extremism and de-radicalization. He is the head of Park Institute for Peace Studies and regularly contributes a column in Daily Dawn. And he is author of a few books also. I hand over to Rana Amir.
Hello, thank you, Dr. Fazlur Rahman. I wish I could be able to join you in person and personally congratulate you compiling a very wonderful volume on the cooperation between China and Pakistan, and which covers 17 years. And I also would like to congratulate Dr. Du, who is joining us from Shanghai. I think this was one of the best publication I have read so far on the issue of the bilateral cooperation between China and Pakistan during recent months. and all credit goes to Dr. Fazlur Rahman. His all the efforts he have made. Though I have contributed a part of the chapter for this the book, but I think the other chapters, especially the chapter from Dr. Hamayo and Ambassador Inamul Haq, I think these chapters are worth it to read, and one can learn not only about the history but all the geopolitical context of the bilateral relation between of China and Pakistan. I think I already have wrote about all the historical perspective for the security cooperation between the two countries, but there is a need to be focused more on the future developments, and of course there's another test is awaiting for both China and Pakistan, and this is in Afghanistan. This will, of course, will impact and shape or maybe the reshape our bilateral engagement or strategic engagements. And this is not only depend how the situation is going on in Afghanistan, where the multiple actors are involved, both the state and non-state actors. This is on not only the violent or the radical actors, including the Taliban or Al-Qaeda or the TTP. They have created the challenge for the bilateral cooperation for China and Pakistan. But of course, there is other actors in Afghanistan. Either they are the warlords, the tribal elders, or the civil society. And this is one of the new factor which is going to be somehow impact the internal political dynamics of Afghanistan. And this will be the one of the challenge I would like to be just briefly comment on. It will be a challenge for the China and Pakistan. This is emerging middle class in Afghanistan, and somehow a small proportion of the civil society in Afghanistan, comprising on the graduates from the Europe and other international institutions, and they are leading the civil society in Afghanistan, and they are very influential somehow in the political discourse and in the narrative formation in Afghanistan. One of our distinguished speaker just has talked about that we, Pakistan and Afghanistan, need to be we focus on evolving, developing, crafting, creating the common narratives of. But I think the one challenge we will face will be the narrative which are coming from the civil society of Afghanistan. And both countries can learn that how they can nurture their own common narrative from the Afghanistan civil society, which has been influenced by the multiple factors, mainly for the external forces, and their outlook is very different from the right now the existing civil society in our region. And one of the biggest challenge, I think, which is we have to be focused on, and this will be that this civil society in Afghanistan mainly controls the media, and they are controlling the narrative. They are not only influencing over the government or in Kabul, but also somehow is forced non-state actors, including the Taliban, to respond to their narratives. So in my view, to be brief, so the new narratives or the common narratives we have to create, no doubt, this is imperative, but we can learn a lot from the Afghanistan example. And what is one of the strongest base for the Afghanistan civil society, that they are very nationalist in their approach, and this nationalism hasn't been artificially crafted, nurtured in the country, and it's despite all the conflict in Afghanistan, so it has evolved somehow in independent environment. So this is, I think, the Pakistan can do, and our Chinese friends, the scholar, the media persons, they can help, and we can evolve a common narrative, specifically the new emerging security challenges. This would be the one of the biggest major challenge for us as well. And I hope that the efforts which made by the Dr. Du and Dr. Fazlur Rahman will help to pave ways towards creating, crafting our own narratives. Long live Sino-Pak friendship, and I hope as we have developed collaboration, cooperation, so we are capable to meet with all the future challenges which are on the card. Thank you very much, Dr. Fazlur Rahman, sir.
Thank you very much, Amirana Saab. I have heard you speaking, for the first time from this angle. And our next speaker is Mr. Imtiazul. He specializes in security and counterterrorism. He is Executive Director, Center for Research and Security Studies, CRSS, author of 5 books, which includes The Most Dangerous Place, Pakistan, and Pakistan Before and After Osama. He's a very prolific writer and contributes very regularly to different newspapers and research journals. So I invite Mr. Imtiazul, please have the floor.
Thank you very much, first to President Ipri, Ms. Pang, Ambassador Saab, and friends. I don't know what I contributed to the book. I don't remember the topic, but what I remember was the traction that China generates in us to be able to write something on Pakistan-China relations. And this is a good entry for me into my book, which I have completed, whose title is What Lies Behind the Iron Brotherhood. It is right now through the editing process. And that's why I wanted to focus here on Patia. What is the background of Patia? Is basically what drives this in China. There are a few instances which basically sensitize me on how deeply entrenched this concept of friendship, partnership with Pakistan is. Because I guess Pakistan is the only country for which this expression is used beside Brazil. So I got my first exposure to this word and to the deep reverence for Pakistan when I, for the first time, went to China in 2008 for Academy of Social Sciences conference. At the end of the first session, we were positioning ourselves for a group photo, and I was just, I don't like to sit in the front. So I was just standing by, waiting for the others to settle down. And then I heard a lady shouting or screaming, whatever. And then somebody standing next to me said, oh, she's asking for you. So really, because the way she was pronouncing my family name, I couldn't figure out. This was my first exposure. So she said, oh, here you are. So she said, we have a chair reserved for our guest from Pakistan in the first row. Please come here. So that was quite very inspiring for me at that moment. Then 2 years later, we entered, we're entering the Beijing Duck restaurant, and there a guard waved at us and he asked one of our Chinese friends, who is he? And he said, Atia. And the guard says, oh, Pakistan. So that was very moving, where, one feels that this narrative from the top of friendship with Pakistan has seeped so down to the grassroots level. And then I recall an American diplomat who had served in Beijing and was freshly in Islamabad. It must have been around 2015-16. And he came to my house for dinner or lunch, and then we were discussing Pakistan-China relation, and he says, all I remember from my experience in China is that Pakistan is always the first for Chinese officials, always remembered with a precedence over others, if I may say so. So this was so reassuring to hear from an American diplomat. He was basically sanctifying, endorsing the bilateral relationship. Then I would say we were somewhere in Washington at a think tank, at a trilateral dialogue in Washington, DC. And there we met Vice President of the China Institute of International Relations, Dong Manyuan. And during the course of conversation, and I had never heard such an emphatic defense of Pakistan. And these were very difficult times, actually. This was in 2015. And he emphasized basically saying that the international community should try to understand the special nature of China-Pakistan relations. So in the presence of so many Americans and some Chinese friends. And during these intense interactions, basically and there were two trilaterals actually within 2 days. So most Chinese officials, they literally went out of their way to denounce the American do more mantra, or what they call Pakistan bashing. And one of them says, you must stop this and start appreciating what Pakistan has done. The US and its allies should ponder, he said. Chinese think tankers, basically they were underscoring, as to what motivated Pakistan to be duplicitous and to adopt a hedging policy vis-a-vis non-state actors. So they were trying to basically defend the Pakistani policy, very emphatic. And then one Professor Liu Xiucheng of the Chinese Institute of International Studies, he emphasized the point that Pakistan is caught up in the consequences of geopolitics. So this is something that simply nobody mentions, geopolitics. When you go to Washington or you have a conversation in London or in Berlin. So Xiucheng, he called on basically outsiders to judge Pakistan through a local perspective and use local processes for solutions rather than imposing solutions from outside. Then another professor went on to say, have we done enough to help Pakistan in overcoming difficulties that it faces because of geopolitical factors? And he agreed basically to that Pakistan must abandon the old policies that it has adopted. But there was such an emphatic defense and support for Pakistan that we felt embarrassed, that our Pakistanis themselves were not putting up such a defense of Pakistan the way our Chinese friends did. So these are a few instances which basically prompted me to just go beyond this rhetoric of solid like rock, deeper than oceans, sweeter than honey. I mean, we have heard this a lot. And I personally think here in Pakistan, there's not enough understanding of how deeply entrenched this patiya, the concept of armed brotherhood, sits in the hearts and minds of our Chinese officials, intellectuals, and as I said, the taxi driver, the cab driver once in Guangzhou, I think, when I got into the cab and he asked my friend, where is it from? And he again said, patiya. So Pakistan, oh, welcome, welcome. So this is what prompted me to put together the book, which hopefully will be coming out very soon in the next few weeks. And the idea is to encapsulate, to capture the spirit that lies behind BRI or CPAC or this time-tested friendship. And I think this will become ever stronger as things move forward. And I will hope that with the help of this book, as well as what I'm trying to do, and thank you for underlining the need for a common narrative in international and the need for international communications. Because without that, it would be very difficult to peddle and promote our narratives and project the real nature of this friendship. So I wish everybody, Dr. Fazal, thank you very much for inviting me, and good luck to the authors and to all those involved in it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Imtiaz, and especially introducing your book. It was kind of a pre-launch of your book. Well, anyway, our next speaker is Dr. Lili. She is a senior fellow and deputy director of the Institute of International Relations at Tsinghua University and chairs the Center for South Asian Studies. She also serves as a Deputy Secretary General of World Peace Forum and the Deputy Editor-in-Chief of the Quarterly Journal of International Politics, the Chinese version. She is author of Security Perceptions and China-India Relations. Her current research interests include China-India relations, as well as politics and security in South Asia and the Indian Ocean region. I hand over the floor to Dr. Lili.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for your kind introduction. Good afternoon and good evening from Beijing. Distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, it is my great honor to attend today's book launch. My heartfelt congratulations to the distinguished editors and authors of this book. The book represents the close cooperation between scholars on both sides. It is also a wonderful gift to the 70th anniversary of China-Pakistan diplomatic relations. The book is very well organized, touching upon all of the prominent areas for bilateral cooperation. Moreover, it also examines the China-Pakistan relationship from the regional and international perspectives. In my opinion, three major trends are affecting our shared neighborhood. First, the consequences of the COVID-19 pandemic. I congratulate our Pakistan friends for your efficiency and success in managing the crisis. However, the second wave has hurt India badly. Situation in Nepal, Sri Lanka, and Afghanistan are worrisome. If there will be a third, whether it will be a third wave, nobody knows. According to the World Bank, the pandemic might add 150 million people to extreme poverty by 2021. The second wave brings uncertainty to the growth of India. It also stops India from exporting vaccines by the end of this year. Lack of vaccines, economic difficulties, and enlarging gaps between the rich and the poor are imminent challenges facing the South Asia. How will the domestic resentment affect a nation's decision-making? How possible it will be diverted to the external front? These are the questions we must think about. Of course, it also provides opportunities for cooperation between China and Pakistan. We can explore how to provide vaccines for a third party like Afghanistan in near future based on our joint manufacturing. Second, the US pulled out from Afghanistan. The Biden administration seems to be determined to completely withdraw from Afghanistan by September 11, 2021. No matter Afghanistan can realize a peaceful transition or not. If the intra-Afghan dialogue cannot reach an agreement, a new civil war cannot be ruled out. The peace and stability in Afghanistan is crucial to China and Pakistan. We should make joint efforts to encourage Afghanistan to find the political solution as early as possible and help Afghanistan to be integrated into the regional economic cooperation. Third, the US Indo-Pacific strategy. In the past, South Asia is a region where the US has been seeking China's cooperation, be it Afghanistan or the non-proliferation. Now the US is building up its strategic cooperation with India, both bilaterally and through the Quad. Will the US Indo-Pacific strategy go beyond India in South Asia? How will it affect the geopolitical picture in the region? This might be a bigger question we should consider. I believe this book more or less provide answers to the above questions. I will read attentively and look forward to exchanging with the distinguished editors and authors in near future. Congratulations once again. Thank you.
He has served at Oxford Chair of Pakistan for 5 years. And he has also served a 4-year tenure at University of Sargodha from 2016 to last month as Vice Chancellor of the university. Over to you, Dr. Ishtar, sir.
Thank you very much. It's a great privilege to be part of this event, especially Foreign Minister Inamul Haq and Madame Shu from the Chinese Embassy, colleagues and friends. I just went through this book only for a couple of hours and found it to be very comprehensive, dealing with almost all important aspects of Chinese-Pakistani relationship, from geopolitical to economic, trade, investment, people to people, cultural. So it, in 11 chapters, apart from a foreword by the Chinese ambassador, an introduction by Mr. Yu Kong, and an epilogue by Dr. Fazal, it is very comprehensive. And I think if you look at the introduction, there are 4 aspects or themes that Mr. Yu Kang has talked about, which is strategic, comprehensive, stable, and permanent. And if you look at the various chapters dealing with various aspects of this relationship, these 4 themes cut across various eras of this ties and aspects of relationship. Then in the foreword, as far as the future way forward of these ties are concerned, Ambassador Nong Rong talks about 5 factors. One is the overcoming the trust gap, mutual trust. Second is CPAC, which is the heart of the economic relationship in the last, more than half a decade now. Third one is people to people, which I have always maintained in my public speeches, is perhaps the most crucial factor, because all these 70 years, we have come a long way, and yet we know little about each other. And especially I have maintained, especially in terms of our activities back in the university, meant to inspire the youth in particular, is that the role of academics or scholars is most crucial right now. Because if we do not act now, then 20 years later, we will be regretting that we did not play this role, which is actually to bridge the academic, the knowledge, and the cultural gap so that once the relationship is moving from state to the people, essentially, or from security to economic, then obviously people need to understand each other. So 20 years later, then we will be proud of the fact that in 2020, we started a major, serious effort. And then obviously there are two other aspects that Ambassador Nong has highlighted is the role that China-Pakistan relations in terms of regional peace and stability and at the multilateral forum. It is very interesting, to go through the rest of the chapters, but I will pick on a couple of themes. One, in the epilogue, I think the concluding line by Dr. Fazal, who is a great friend, and I'm grateful to him particularly that some years ago he decided to leave Islamabad like me and join with me in Sargodha, and we were able, apart from many other achievements, in terms of promoting, the people-to-people cultural ties and setting up institutions. I think we were able to have Pakistan's 5th Confucius Institute in the shortest possible time in perhaps any BRI country, and I'm grateful to him. I'm also, I always appreciate him because if I go back 20 years, the only expert that you had in Pakistan on China was Dr. Fazal. And I really, I honor that because you see the issue in Pakistan is that on the one hand, you have scholarship, and scholarship is something that you spend years, doing research, rigorous research. And then you are able to conclude and understand the challenges and opportunities in the present and able to foresee, how this relationship will evolve or should evolve well into the future. But in Pakistan, we have seen, over time, say 9/11 takes place and next year you had, 300 experts on counterterrorism or extremism. Likewise, ever since CPAC, we have seen this sheer opportunism, generating so many third-rate articles on CPAC and, sometimes exaggerating its various aspects. Although I personally believe that if you look at this relationship right from Pakistan's recognition of China in 1950 until say 2015, which I think is the most turning point in this ties, when President Xi visits Pakistan and declares this relationship as a strategic partnership, all-weather strategic cooperative partnership. That's a turning point in ties, and it synchronizes with the CPAC. So I believe that despite, this 2015 beyond, we have not been able to achieve what this relationship deserved in the last 6 or 7 years. And I think there are issues that we need to overcome. The spirit is there, the history is there, but somehow there are some issues, lack of understanding, or our inability to learn from Chinese history or civilization, or adopt the work ethics that the Chinese society has developed over time. I personally consider that China is a great opportunity. Why? It's not only out of sheer rhetoric, it's out of pragmatism. That the only success story in the last 40 years in contemporary world history is China. By 2030, as Foreign Minister Inam Saab says in his own chapter, in nominal terms, China will be the richest country. In triple P terms, it is already the richest country in the world. So whether you have this 70 years of very friendly ties, leave it aside. Even on pragmatic terms, we should side with the success story because that is guaranteed, 10 years, 20 years down the lane. And let me make the last point. Again, I will pick that theme from Inam Saab's chapter, which is because he thinks that perhaps the most defining relationship in terms of world politics right now is the US-China relationship. How it evolves in future will determine the future of world politics, the future of peace and stability in the region that we live in. So it is extremely important that Pakistan should link its own survival with the survival of Sino-Pakistan partnership. Extremely important, be it with reference to Afghanistan. And there are two issues that Inam points out, is that we live in a situation right now, which is a situation of extreme flux, is uncertain, and there are existential threats, beyond the traditional threats, which need a common response from especially countries like Pakistan and China, who have stood the test of times in the last 70 years. And I have always maintained that what China, through sheer destiny, has given us, it has given us a lasting solution of maintaining peace and avoiding war at the global level. Lasting solution, never before, which is, it is something between, sheer idealistic and structural realism. It actually solves the issue, because we have always tried to settle this issue, how to ensure peace, and a peace which lasts long, stable peace, and how to permanently avoid war. So what Chinese leadership has come up, especially under President Xi, is that let us cooperate on free trade, because free trade leads to economic growth and national prosperity. People become, they come out of poverty, just as look at China. So once, irrespective of your culture or your political system, whether a country is democracy or not a democracy, it has a traditional culture or a modern, culture. Leave it aside. Leave cultural and political aspects aside. Let us concentrate on economic, trade, investment, cooperation across the globe, which is what, in my opinion, BRI is all about, and the flagship CPEC project is all about. That is why we should, as Pakistan and China, look at two main irritants very seriously. One, the United States, which is a declining power, and it will behave the way it has been behaving, bipartisan. It's not Democratic and Republican. There is no difference at all. It will pursue the Asia-Pacific strategy, which is a consistent theme in the last 15, 20 years now, in my opinion, since Obama's times or Bush times. And secondly, India, which has been an arch rival of China and Pakistan since Pakistan's creation. We have been trying to mend our ties with India, but India has always perceived CPEC in security terms, although it is only an economic regional integration project which will benefit every country in the region. So I think watching the forces and the factors that try to destabilize CPEC or our strategic relationship in the future, and trying to work on areas in which we have already made significant improvements and build upon these improvements, I think that is the wise strategy. In my opinion, this book, in addition to some of the volumes like Andrew Small's, Pakistan-China Axis, or Muhammad Ali's Oxford China-Pakistan relationship, there are very few books, which are academic or scholarly in nature. This book, I think, is a major contribution, although in my opinion, it lacks, in terms of scholarly contribution from non-China Pakistani scholars. I think the next issue can compensate for that. There are areas where it seems to overlap also in its historical narration. And I think the next edition I can propose should cover, because we have a fairly well understanding of the present dynamics through this book and some other texts. And I think we should now seek to produce volumes which are futuristic in kind and based upon our historical evolutionary analysis, current understanding of challenges and opportunities. Let us try to focus in our future. Maybe PCC can produce with Hudan, another volume on the future RPEX trajectory of this relationship. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you, Dr. Ishaq, for a very comprehensive and focused presentation and comments, and sharing your views about Pakistan-China relations. Our Next commentator is Dr. Lu Chunhao. Dr. Lu Chunhao is Deputy Director and Associate Research Professor at the Institute of South Asian Studies at the China Institute of Contemporary International Relations, KICR. His research covers Indian studies, Sino-Indian relationship, South Asian regional issues, and maritime security. Dr. Lowe's is author of the book, Indian Business Houses, Political Influence. The title is very catchy and seems very interesting. And I'm sure that he has dealt very well with the subject because he was a visiting scholar at the Institute of Defense Studies and Analysis, IDSA in Delhi. So he must have, sort of heard the information and the stories from horse's mouth. So over to you, Dr. Lu.
Thanks. Thanks, Dr. Rahman. Thanks for your introduction. And also thank you. Glad to meet all the distinguished guests from both China and Pakistan. First, I would like to convey my heartfelt congratulations to the book launch of the 70 years of the Pak-China relations perspectives. As we know, during the past few months, we've already, both China and Pakistan, we have already organized many celebration activities for the 70th years anniversary. And even our Vice Chairman Wang Qishan has attended one ceremony activity organized by Pakistan's embassy in Beijing. So I think that after reading through the book, I think that all the many well-known scholars, both China and Pakistan, contributed their in-depth knowledge on the bilateral relationship. And this book is quite informative and enlightening. There's no denying that during the past 70 years, we have achieved great achievements. So I think that, but here I think that we should not only dwell on the past achievements of the bilateral relationship, but think about the way forward. Think about what lessons and experiences we should learn from our relationship, and what are the challenges we may face in the future. So here I would like to share my views on the 4 C's. First is commitment. That is the consistent political commitment. I think that the political commitment of our solid war-weather relationship lays the foundation for our bilateral relationship. Just like some scholars have mentioned that nowadays, both China and Pakistan, or our relationship face many new atmospheres, whether it's from geopolitically or whether from both domestically. So under these circumstances, both China and Pakistan, we should pay more attention, not only to just a political announcement, but take some actual further commitments to our to our all-weather friendship. Here, I think that we, both China and the Indian governments and all other sections, the whole society, whole government already take many actions. Just one example is that, as we know, a friend in need is a friend indeed. And as we know that during these pandemic challenges, Pakistan is the first country to accept Chinese vaccines, and also Pakistan's military is the first foreign military to accept Chinese military's help in combating the COVID. So I think that in future we should make more efforts to strengthen our consistent political commitment. The second C is the comprehensive, that is comprehensive national security perspective. As we know, China, we emphasize the comprehensive national security, and last few months, Pakistan's officials and military leaders also have emphasized the change of the security mindset, and we should pay more attention to the comprehensive national security, and we should pay more attention to the economic security, the role of the economic security in safeguarding the whole national security. So this can allow us to divert more resources on economic development. So only after we strengthen ourselves economically and politically that we have more resources to safeguard our security. So I think that this COVID pandemic also reflects the importance of the health security. So this the second C that China and in Pakistan, we should take some exchange views and learn from each other in how to take the comprehensive national security perspective. The third C is cooperation, cooperative economic engagement. That, as we know, that it's better to tell how to fish instead of just give fish. So I think that now we have already taken many efforts in promoting our economic cooperation, economic engagement. But in future, we should I think that there are still many potentialities we should explore in deepening our pragmatic economic cooperation. The economic cooperation should be a win-win, dual-track cooperation, and I think that this will lay the more solid foundation for our future relationship. The fourth C is the connectivity. This is about people-to-people connectivity. And the people-to-people communication or connectivity is not only limited to the cultural perspective, but should be expanded to the whole society. So we should encourage the people-to-people communication or connectivity or engagement exchange, not only the government level, but the society level, such like the media persons and also think tank scholars. Of course, today's activity is one part of this people-to-people communication. So I think that if we look at the social media, both at China and Pakistan, it's a fact that, of course, the majority voices supports the IAM broader relationship, supports the all-weather relationship, but also there are some negative views. And why? This is because of the misinformation, misunderstanding. So I think that China and Pakistan, we should in future, should take more efforts in take some kind of the all society people-to-people exchange, so that we should have more better understanding, not only from the government level, not only from the think tank level, but from the whole society level. These are for the four C's. What I would like to share with all the distinguished guests. But to conclude, is that I think that I am fully confident about the future of our bilateral relationship. And after reading through the book, I think that this book is summarized from many perspectives: geopolitical, cultural, economic, etc. It means that our relationship, our friendship, itself is all-weather and also comprehensive all sectors. So to conclude that I'm really confident of the bilateral relationship, and I also hope that the academic cooperation will bring forth more fruits, more research outcomes in future. Thanks, Dr. Rahman.
Thanks. And I think that you are absolutely correct in your assessment and in your analysis that there are areas which needs to be improved in terms of our bilateral communications. I have read His Excellency President Xi Jinping's message to our president on this occasion. And one thing which struck me was the emphasis on strengthening strategic communication between the two countries. And I think here it is that, we have to go back to our tradition, where our leaders used to have a personal relationship with the Chinese leadership. They used to spend time together discussing politics, discussing international relations, discussing, bilateral regional issues. But now I think somehow that tradition has been broken, and that tradition has been broken for various reasons. We cannot say that, what are the causes for that, but it can be re-established, it can be re-strengthened. And this is how perhaps we will be able to overcome this, what has been earlier mentioned as trust deficit or misunderstanding or miscalculations. So I think that we need to, institute mechanisms. There are several mechanisms which are already existing. They are very much alive, like strategic, sort of a dialogue between the two countries at different levels. But we need to certainly strengthen this strategic communication, and we should very deeply read the message of His Excellency President Xi Jinping, because there are like so many areas identified in that message for us to understand in a Chinese subtle way. Our next speaker is Dr. Salma Malik. Dr. Salma Malik is Assistant Professor at the Department of Defense and Strategic Studies, Quaid-e-Azam University. A very well-known and well-established academician, specializes on multiple disciplines of security studies and international relations. Over to you, Madam.
Good morning. Thank you very much, Dr. Fazal. On a personal note, before I do my regular thanks, when I joined my first job at the Institute of Strategic Studies, I was put under Fazal's supervision to guide me. And halfway through that supervision part, I had a massive fight with my supervisor saying, I can't do whatever you're telling me to do. I didn't realize at that time that Fazal had a very hands-on approach at looking at things and managing them. Over the years, I'm so happy that our friendship grew to a point where I saw Fazal as a citizen ambassador to China and seeing how diplomacy works at another level. Heartiest congratulations, Dr. Fazal, and heartiest congratulations, team PCC, for this excellent piece of work that you have done. Your Excellency, Madame Ron, Brigadier Rashid, sir, thank you very much for your kind information, for your kind invitation, and to my friend Nadine sitting in the audience. When I was given this book, and I must say my friends are really fascinating. They gave me a very short notice before sending such a request. It was a pleasure, though I was short on time, to look at a book which was covering a huge canvas of 70 years. But it was fascinating to read, because we usually read under pressure, to see what all these scholars had come to put together and what all they had provided to us in this modest volume. It is a big and small volume in terms of the fact that it's a 250-page plus book, has a lot of information. It covers the entire gamut of relationship between the two countries and more. As the word speaker, Dr. Ishtaq was pointing out, that there is a bit of overlapping, but that is understandable because there has to be an overlapping, especially in an edited volume where people are looking at things from their independent perspective. But what was interesting to see was that where there were certain similarities in thoughts and streams of conversation, there was also this approach where majority of speakers had taken the same issues from a different lens. How the Chinese speakers were how the Chinese writers were looking at what China-Pakistan relationship is all about, and how the Pakistanis have viewed this particular relationship. For me, from a teacher's perspective, this book is fascinating because we have very few academic works on a topic which is of extreme importance to us. As Pakistanis, we grew up listening to Cheen Dosti Zindabad. My family, who was a family of military personnel, we had a very deep relationship with the Chinese embassy because time and again there would be functions and we would be going there. And at that time, we would be given these Chairman Mao's batches, which I really wish we would have preserved at that time, but we were too young. They were red-colored badges with golden facade of Chairman Mao. And we would come home wearing them, flaunting to our friends, dishing them out to our friends, and that's how it was. And for us, especially in Pakistan, Pak Chin Dosti was always taken for granted. And that was all we needed to understand about this friendship. And actually, as a teacher, when I ask my students to write on China, there is very little information available to them beyond CPEC. Actually, for Pakistanis or the young generation of Pakistan, China starts from CPEC onwards. And they really don't know what has happened. They don't know much about the Nixon diplomacy. They don't know much about what Dr. Fazil just pointed out, the personal touch that actually defined the Pakistan-China friendship in the earlier years. There's also a lot of mention in this book about phases where this friendship, which we call the all-weather friendship, or a friendship that we call, which is deeper than mountains and higher than, which is deeper than oceans and higher than mountains, that there were linear phases between the two countries. We don't even know about the fact, and many of the students won't even know about the fact that Pakistan-China border agreement was not exactly something that just came out of a fairy tale. It was a very pragmatically thought out, articulated, argued agreement, and that has gone a long way in defining what South Asia today stands all about. So there are many things that we need to understand when we read this volume. I do agree and I don't agree with Dr. Iqbal that it's not very high in terms of academic discourse, because for the fact that it's a very easily and very simply written discourse. And one of those few books where you find non-Pakistani Chinese speakers or Chinese writers writing about these notions, which we are not very familiar with. I totally agree when he says that a lot of crappy work has been done when it comes to Pakistan and China. Yes, we replicate, we reproduce, we Google translate or retranslate. But the fact is that it's a wonderful thing that such books are coming out, and they are setting a stage for more academic rigor. They're setting a stage for more people who would get fascinated in exploring various things that there are. Where this book is talking about Pakistan and China, I also felt that this book very subtly talked about the trajectory China was also taking during this time. And unfortunately, where Pakistan held a lot of promise, we stalled somewhere in between. And it's not that we had stalled for good. We have the vigor, we have the capacity, we can do a lot more. And inshallah, we will do that. But this is also a parallel narrative of how China started from a stereotypical country with very little to offer to the world, totally written off by the Western powers of the world, and where China stands today. How China very prudently exploited and used the same instruments which tried to deter China from progressing. So the lesson learned for a good friend Pakistan is that nothing can deter you if you're determined to do what you want to do. So those factors, and do I have any time or should I just say my thank yous and move further? But I would definitely look at this aspect from several factors, and that is the triads between Pakistan, China, India, Pakistan, China, and the US have been very well defined by the speakers who were looking at this particular notion as to how this thing has worked. Interestingly, there is this mention that Pakistan, China, and India relationship were getting better. There were certain times or certain phases where there was a high in that relationship. But the interesting factor to note here is that there was not a there is a dehyphenation between these relationships, and there is not a bettering of Pakistan, China-India relations at the cost of Pakistan-China relations. So Pakistan-China relationship moved at an independent trajectory, and it had no reflection or the parallel relationship being built between China and India had no reflection at all on what was happening with Pakistan. For Pakistan, the choices were very, very limited as well as very challenging. For a country that had too many internal and external challenges and a neighbor breathing down its neck with hell and fire, choosing between the US and China was not an option very easy to go for. And this was a challenge which has been talked about with a subtle critical note. But the fact is that from a Pakistani perspective, if a parallel narrative is written, there can be several things that can be provided as a proper reason as to why, what happened and how it all happened. But the fact is that several of the rhetorics that we have talked about, the all-weather friendship, deeper than the oceans and higher than the mountains, all of these things actually are part of the strategic, not only rhetoric, but the narrative between the two countries. The all-weather strategic cooperative partnership is something that one can actually take back to your students and tell them, this document actually exists. There is a document that has a title that says it. So thank you very much for working on this volume. Thank you very much to all of you who have critically looked at this very, very important factor. The book has a feel-good feeling to it because that's how usually the books are. I hope we move to a point where we can very comfortably also criticize each other and come away feeling pretty all right about it. What Pakistan and China have missed, and I hope in the next volume, when it comes out, what we have not missed, what opportunities we have and what opportunities we can catch. We have a lot of ground to cover. We have covered a lot of ground, but I think a lot more is left, and this is an opportunity that Pakistan should not miss at all. Thank you very much, and best of luck to everyone. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Salma. Some of your observations were really very valid, and we will look into it, especially tackling the subject, from different angles, the Chinese perspective and the Pakistani perspective. There could be, sort of one possibility that on the same subject there is a Pakistani view and a Chinese view. But we thought that, let it be this way, that, let's have on one subject the Chinese view, on the other the Pakistani view. So we have not really, let it design that way. Usually the last speaker complains when is invited to the podium that, I am at disadvantage because, most of the stuff that he wanted to say has already been said. But I think that, that speaker should look at the other side of the coin. If he had not prepared any, presentation for that, so after having listened to, several presentations, he is well prepared and qualified to make good comments. So our last speaker is Mr. Humayun Khan. He is expert on China studies and is a director of Pakistan Council on China and has served at the Institute of Strategic Studies at China Studies Center, and later on joined National Defense University, where he taught for over a decade. Over to you, Mr. Humayun Khan.
Thank you very much, sir. And I did prepare a presentation. Thank you so much. I would like to start by thanking Pakistan Council in China, Dr. Fazlur Rahman, Ambassador Namul Haq Saab, for inviting me to this August gathering for a launch of a very much needed book on China-Pakistan relations. This is an academic book and one of its kind, in a way that whatever has been written in the past on China-Pakistan economic or China-Pakistan relationship, it is either from the Western perspective or it's either from one-sided perspective. So it is also a very timely book in this sense that at this point in time, when 70 years of this relationship has passed, we have taken views from both the Chinese side and the Pakistani side. All the authors in this book have done a great job by providing their insightful comments on their paper. I also like to take this opportunity to congratulate both China and Pakistan, as this year marks the 70th anniversary of this amazing and long-standing relationship between the two countries. A relationship which has not only seen an amazing growth all these years, but it also is a time-tested and all-weather friendship. And why it is important to repeat these words, Jaz Gulsa was mentioning that, we should also be seeing the basis of this relationship, but it is also at the same time very important to repeat this relationship so that people should know what actually is the reason why we define this relationship in such a way. Our relationship is very close and cordial and fraternal with Chinese, and it is established long before China has emerged as a major economic and military power. These relationships are based in the mutual trust and confidence that has existed between both the leadership of countries for generations. It would also be amiss if we don't compare Pakistan's and China's relationship and Pakistan's and US relationship as well. US, the sole superpower or hyperpower as we see, that it has always been an unequal and transactional relationship. It has maintained an unequal and transactional relationship with Pakistan, and many a time this relationship is dysfunctional. Sometimes Pakistan is dubbed as a client state of the US, which has been compensated for its services rendered to promote the national interest and objective of a different American administration, especially when it comes to Afghanistan. Imtiaz Gul Sahab has mentioned in detail about the AFPAC region in the book, so I will not go into the detail. The timing of this book is very important. It has come at an extremely important time, which is the 70th anniversary of China-Pakistan relationship, but also when the world is facing a terrible pandemic of COVID-19. And China's role in the fight against COVID-19 is exemplary, and the way it has dealt with it at home and how generously it has helped its allies and the world in general is remarkable. Since the outbreak of COVID-19, China has helped Pakistan in terms of providing masks, ventilator, PPE equipment, and above all, vaccine, which was much needed for Pakistan. And also the expertise to develop Pakistan's own vaccine, which is proving once again that China's unique and friendship and unity with Pakistan, which basically is exemplified in this book as well. Today, both China and Pakistan shoulder their historical responsibility of national rejuvenation and are committed to strengthening their countries and enriching the people. Now more than ever, both sides needs to work closely with each other. The world is fast changing and uncertainty is increasing. And as Ambassador Enamul Haq Sahab has mentioned in his chapter in the book, and I'll quote, in this uncertain world, existential threats to humankind and its habitat, the planet Earth, are growing rapidly, but insufficient attention is being paid to them. These threats include an unsustainable world population, nuclear war, climate change, global warming, pandemics, food shortages, mass migration, cybersecurity, and the possibility of another major economic and financial meltdown, decoupling of economies, breakdown of global supply chain, trade and tariff wars, and deepening rich and poor divide, both within and among the countries. So in these times, I guess Pakistan and China should give full play to their traditional friendship, jointly meet these challenges, seek common development, and together build a closer community of shared future, which will benefit the people from both sides, promote regional stability, prosperity, and make China-Pakistan relationship a model for building a community of shared future for mankind. And I guess we are on the same trajectory. Their strategic mutual trust should further be enhanced through a continuation of high-level interaction. Sometimes these interactions in the past were low because of the COVID, but I guess now we are picking up the pace. Both countries should maintain the tradition of frequent visit and consultation on all the important issues, which is now more important than before in this changing world. One of the speakers mentioned in the comments earlier that we should also be defining this relationship and criticizing each other. I guess Enam Sahab would be explaining more on that in his comment, that this relationship has such a great nature that we do criticize each other, but not in public. It's in private conversation. The diplomats, the leadership have communicated with each other their concerns. So bilateral cooperation should be enhanced further, and CPEC should be implemented more expeditiously, and its scope should further be enhanced, which should include poverty alleviation, agriculture and industrial cooperation, which has now been incorporated in the 10th JCC. And it should enhance people's livelihood, and this should be given a priority in terms of the CPEC. Media, being one of the most important pillars of the state, should be added in the list of cooperation under the CPEC, apart from health, education, and peoples-to-peoples contact, which most of the speakers have mentioned earlier. And peoples-to-people contact should form the basis of this relationship in the future, not only the interaction on cultural level, but economic, business, media, education, and health, all these included. Both traditional and non-traditional security cooperation must continue for secure economic cooperation and strategic stability in the region. This topic has been covered by Mr. Amir Rana in detail as well. I wouldn't take much time, I guess. Namsa would now be concluding. In the end, I must congratulate both the editors, particularly Dr. Fazlur Rahman and Professor Du, and Pakistan Council on China for arranging this insightful academic contribution. It is an extremely valuable addition in Sino-Pakistan studies and should be a guide for anyone to learn from it in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayur Khan, for a very good presentation, which was certainly prepared well. Before I invite Ambassador Namul Haq for the concluding remarks, I would like to request you, sir, to just hold the book and formally launch. Madam, first for the formal. Excuse me. I would like to invite Ambassador Namul Haq for the concluding remarks, please.
Thank you. Distinguished participants, we have had a fairly long session. In fact, we have gone beyond the time that was allocated for this event. But there are one or two things that I wanted to say. Much has been said already. Let me put it this way, that while the West has been extremely critical, particularly in the United States of China, and now there's a bilateral consensus to, so to say, I was reading recently that 71% people in China, in the United States now hold a negative view of China. The fact is that there are some sane Western voices which still talk about the relationship in positive terms and talk of China's achievements in positive terms. I was recently reading an article which made certain very interesting points as to why the United States is so much against China. The first point that he made was that China is the only country in the world which has pulled out more than 800 million people from below the poverty line to above the poverty line in a short span of 4 decades. No other country has achieved that. And this contrasts with the Western capitalist economic model, where the rich and the poor divide is in fact all the time increasing. I'm sure all of you have read that during the COVID-19 pandemic also, the billionaires in the United States have become much richer and the poor in the United States have become poorer. And this is happening all the time. China is therefore in a way seen as a challenge to the global economic hegemony, which the West has exercised now for more than 2 centuries over the world. And they cannot accept the fact that a non-white nation has come out to challenge the white West and the United States. This is a white Western writer who has written this. Then he goes on to say that the Chinese infrastructure is the best in the world today and compares it with the decayed infrastructure in the United States, which now President Joe Biden is trying to bring up to date once again, and the Republicans are opposing the investments that he wants to do in infrastructure. There's a lot of talk about the Chinese debt trap in Western intellectual writing. I think somebody should ask the Western writers, who started this debt trap? Most of the developing countries in the world today are in a debt trap. There is no doubt about that. But it is not of Chinese making. It is of Western making. We have been borrowing money for most of our lives, our independent lives, from the West and not from China. Therefore, to accuse China of creating a debt trap is a total falsehood and of shifting responsibility for their own sins onto the shoulders of China. And we should be very clear when we read these statements about the propaganda element in them. The effort is to malign China in the eyes of the developing countries, which are forging close relations with China because of its rapid economic advances. And the American response or the Western response has only been to demonize those who have tried to praise China's achievements over the last 4 decades or so. These things are also, according to the same writer, designed to keep attention away from the systemic Western racism by accusing other countries, including China, of human rights violations and mistreatment of minorities. If we look at the history of the West and the United States, what do we see? We see genocide of the local populations in order to control their resources, win over the resources and return. For example, in the United States, the local population, the local inhabitants were totally wiped out, and those remaining were pushed into reservations. In New Zealand, there have emerged mass graves of local Maori children who were herded into schools, and when they died, they were buried in the same schools. Hundreds of bodies are being excavated even today. The same happened in Australia, and the same happened in Latin America when the Spaniards went and occupied Latin America. So what they're trying to do is to pin the blame on the other to avoid attention being placed on them as to their own past. It's not so many years ago that the United States economy was based on slavery. Black African slaves were brought regularly from Africa and given into slavehood in the United States, and the economy of the US was dependent on the labor of African slaves. And finally, there is this effort to keep the people of the West, through their information media, in the dark about the success of the economic model followed by China, as against the Western capitalist system, which has consistently worked for further enriching the richest 1% of the population of the West. In concluding, I would like to say that we have had a very useful session. I would like to thank all the participants, both from Pakistan and from China, for having contributed to the work and for having participated in this event and shared their thoughts with us. And I would like in the end to thank the Chinese Embassy and the Deputy Head of Mission for their presence at this event, and thank the Brigadier General and IPRI for allowing us to use their premises for holding this event. Thank you very much, and good day to all of you.
Thank you very much, sir. Now there will be a presentation of memento to Madame Tang, the Deputy Chief of Mission.
Chairman of the Board of Governors.
This presentation of memento, we conclude our today's ceremony. Thank you very much to all who have participated in this online and